I'm delighted that for our next session, we've been joined by our Vice President of Research from UL, Professor Nora Lee Kennedy. And we have again, thank you, because we've got really strong and diverse panel representatives to talk to us now about funding opportunities. So can I ask our panel who are here to contribute on the funding to join Professor Nora Lee Kennedy here on the stage, please.
Thank you very much, Rowan, for the introduction. I understand the panel does not need introduction because their beautiful faces have been shown to you all morning, and you've heard from some of the panel members already. But what we thought we would do at this point in time is almost like a point for reflection, as well as think about the context of funding. And mindful that, as Ronan has said, there's a lot of actors, stakeholders, aspects, a lot of strategy documents, a lot of plans, a lot of elements that circulate around the conversation we've had this morning. And we thought we might just start a little bit with, I suppose, thinking about how the topic of sustainability gets addressed within that context. And I know when we spoke earlier in preparation for the session, we talked particularly about the role a university and the University of Limerick can play within that context of maybe serving as like a nexus for connecting some of those elements. So I might just go to each of the panel members, and I'll start at the end with Aisling, and just have your general opening remarks, and you can deviate from that particular angle if you wish. And then we'll move into talking about some of the specific funding elements. And then I'll go to the audience for questions, because I am aware of time. But we can move back and forth. And if there's something that strikes you as we're talking, please feel free to ask us for something more specific. So, Aisling, just like your general, I suppose, even your response, your reaction to what you've heard this morning. We've had a really interesting morning, some of which I've heard, but really topical debate, lots to consider. So I suppose even just some initial reactions, some of that from yourself, Aisling.
Microphone? Yeah, it's been a really interesting morning, actually. Lots of food for thought, but for me, and I suppose this is the hat I wear every day, it's all about partnership, so in many areas, the whole focus on partnership is essential to really enabling what we're trying to achieve. And I think particularly in this area of sustainability, that's absolutely critical. So, we talk about the quadruple helix, but of course we've heard about the additional piece of that being the environment today as well. But it really is so important to bring all the actors together. So, the academics are key to this. Industry is key. Government in our various roles are absolutely critical. But of course, the citizen is really important as well. And I suppose just thinking about, what happened just post-COVID. I mean, I think COVID really brought research to the forefront. And building on that, then there was a kind of a call to the citizens of Ireland to see what is it that you want your taxpayers' money to be spent on? What research do you think is important? And of course, this area, sustainability, climate change, was absolutely critical. So I think it is about bringing everybody together. And I suppose by bringing the citizens into these kind of projects, there is the citizen science piece, which we heard about earlier, but it's also giving that understanding about what is possible, and also sort of educating the citizens about a life in research, a life in science, and what a STEM career can enable. And I think that's really important, because we need to keep building those people. We need to keep building that capability and bringing them in. So just maybe a few thoughts.
Thanks, Aisling. And I might just pick up on the partnership piece, which I completely agree with you on. And just this is Research Week, as we know, and just we're currently having a citizens' assembly in parallel to this event today. Earlier in the week, we had the launch of a participatory health research unit, which is very much about engaging migrants and other patients and public in health research particularly. But I suppose when I was listening to you, and I absolutely agree, the citizen piece, really valuable. Do you think, and maybe you can answer this in the next query around the funding piece, but a little bit about funding mechanisms. Do you think anything needs to change to, I suppose, more fully support what you describe about the engagement engagement and the involvement of citizens in the sustainable research funding landscape?
So I guess we're developing different types of funding programs, and Darragh will have been very involved when he was in SFI in the development of challenge funding, and I suppose that's a real way of bringing that societal champion through, and it's been hugely attractive. And I know there's a lot of activity, a lot of initial awards have come to UL focused on geothermal, for example, focused on biodegradable fertilizers. Really, really fantastic, innovative projects that are being informed by societal champions. So it's not just, we've heard about researchers in their ivory towers a lot this morning, but it is actually engaging with those challenges, really trying to understand what is the core of that problem. And I suppose that just has been just transformative, I feel, for the system. And what it's also done is it's brought new researchers into the system. So 60% of applicants to the National Challenge Programme are new to SFI. So I think that's just hugely exciting.
It is. It's very interesting. I didn't realise that, actually. It's very interesting. Okay, we'll pick some of those threads up in the next set of questions. Thank you for that, Ashing. Darragh, so for your kind of perspective of the EPA, reactions, thoughts, kind of general response, opening remarks.
Sure. No, it's been a great morning so far, and I think so much has been covered, and there's lots to touch on. I suppose what struck me, or what strikes me, is sustainability isn't just a single step, it's a transition. It's an all of society transition that we're kind of on that journey, and we have to involve all of the society in that. I think research will play a key role in trying to inform that, and I thought there's been a real strong policy focus as well on the role of policy as an enabling environment to make sure that sustainability transition is done appropriately and with understanding of the trade-offs we're making, avoiding unintended consequences, and maximising the co-benefits of what we're doing. So I suppose from an EPA perspective, we're really focused on trying to inform that policy context and that enabling environment, and our research is really driven to inform that. And I think where UL can come in there is really about looking at those solutions at a local level, engaging with partners across all of society, and trying to make sure that the information that they're bringing together can be taken on by policymakers through working with us, of course, to make sure that those solutions, where appropriate, and can be then advanced, supported, financed. And there's a hugely complex sort of system to navigate, but I think engaging with that system at an early stage will really allow UL and other players more broadly to engage with the opportunity of that sustainability transition. There are lots of challenges, but we're on the journey. The train isn't going to stop, so let's make the most of it. And there's huge opportunity, and UL can be part of that.
Thanks for that, Darragh. And just if I'm an early career researcher and I'm listening to you and I'm hearing you speaking about engage with us, can you tell me what that looks like? How do I interact with that open invitation, which is really welcome to hear?
Yeah, there's lots of different ways and to engage with the EPA, I suppose. I mean, funding is of course one of the opportunities. So if you are funded by the EPA, you will have a steering committee in place of policymakers that will support you on making sure that the research you do can be the knowledge that you generate can be transferred as efficiently as possible, made as relevant as possible, and brought through. You'll receive training in those kind of areas. So that, like, by applying to us and going through our funding mechanisms, that's one approach. But engage with the agency as well. I mean, look at what we're doing. Already today we heard about water, wastewater, sludges, waste, climate, biodiversity. These are aspects that the agency has responsibility for, along with other departments and agencies across government. There's a wealth of information in the data sets that we have available out there, the reports, where the gaps are and the knowledge gaps. So there's opportunities to engage in with sort of across our function as an implementing agency as well as a research funding agency.
Great, thank you very much for that, Darragh. It's great to have that kind of sense of openness and ways of engaging. Thank you for that. We might pick some of those pieces on the policy development up a little later. Thank you for that. Lawrence, your kind of opening comments, responses, reactions, opening remarks.
Good afternoon. Thank you. So sustainability is a very important topic, and Enterprise Ireland take it very seriously. And it is one of the key focus that we have on par with the job and value creation. So as Brian mentioned this morning, it is a challenge to many businesses, but it's also huge opportunities. I think in order for Irish companies to really take advantage of the opportunity, we need quite comprehensive support in order to help them to try to navigate on all the difficulties and challenges. And Enterprise Ireland actually have quite comprehensive support for them. I just want to go through a few of them. So we emphasize the importance of sustainable plan for any organization, including businesses, to really cover the energy efficiency, resource efficiency to the supply chain, in order actually for them to not only to plan ahead, but also to keep track of the effort. We organize green transition workshop and also sustainable Kickstarter seminar to really educate the business leaders in terms of the sustainability, environmental, social, and also the governance principle, and to help them to apply those principles in their business model. We certainly have a full range and whole range of support and help and funding for the companies that appropriate in their stage of business. And also we have collaborate with a research organization like DPTC or PMTC or other groups in Limerick and beyond to collaborate with the business in order to really to develop some innovative solutions and products that the business might not be able to develop themselves, including the Innovation Partnership program on that. We help to build clusters, industrial clusters around the countries under the Regional Technology Cluster Fund. One of the examples that been mentioned this morning would be the circular bioeconomy clusters and also the Irish Bioeconomy Foundation as well. So I think these are the support, and by working with Enterprise Ireland, with other agencies and other groups and research institutions, we're probably in a good position to get advantage from the climate problem.
Great, thank you very much, Lawrence. We might pick up later to maybe some questions, some of the elements about that working together piece, because sometimes it can maybe feel a little like there's so many elements, there's so many actors in the system, and that's really important and necessary, but maybe navigating through that. And would it be fair to say that from your perspective, Enterprise Ireland, you're a key, I suppose, translator of some of that system as well, particularly if you're a company new to some of those elements, like you've mentioned a range of elements there of support. So would that be a fair observation, Lawrence, do you think?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Climate change is a big problem and big challenge and also opportunities. So we do need the whole of government and whole of society approach on that. Enterprise Ireland would do the part and different agents would do their part. And by together, I think we'll certainly, what do you call, 1 + 1 more than 2 sort of approach.
Great, thank you very much, Lawrence. Great, Patrick, and we're working you hard now today. This is your further thoughts and reflections.
Sweating the participants, yeah. That's so. Just to pick up on maybe the first or the second question about early stage researchers. So I suppose the Department of Agriculture is a funder of research amongst many, and we would have a certain percentage. So we would have different funding strands. So initially we have a national thematic competitive research program. So there's different areas there, and then there's different instruments within that allows, I suppose, researchers to start off their career, come in by themselves, come in small collaborations, build up that collaboration. Then we also are involved in the EU partnerships. So when they progress through the stages, then they can maybe go into international collaboration on the pathway to hopefully examining Horizon Europe opportunities, which we participate in the Horizon Europe network that Enterprise Ireland have put in place. And then there's different new tools coming in. So for example, at the moment, there's this policy and strategic studies research call. So that's where there's a recognition that maybe more experienced researchers have, incredible knowledge that needs to be brought to the policy system. And this allows them to create the networks and undertake the work so that this in knowledge can be moved on. So I suppose it's to have a system in place, and then I suppose we try to work then across the funding system through the Impact 2030 network. But then a lot of times with our research funder partners, there's a lot of conversations that go on about call preparation, alignment of calls so that DAFM covers this and EPA covers that, and SFI has a very broad remit, and we make sure that we work together either in steering groups. So there's a lot of partnership that goes on to help make the system more acceptable and amenable to the researchers. And then I suppose just to say for the researchers, we want to listen to what they say. So for example, upcoming now during the summer, the Department of Agriculture, we're in the process now of developing a research and innovation vision, quite complementary to maybe what's already in place with other funders under the umbrella of Impact 2030, and we'll be going out to public consultation. So we'll be looking for the research community to come back in with their feedback to tell us the direction of where we need to go to. And the things we'll be thinking about is structurally, like sort of the umbrella we work with all underfunders, how can we improve that element? What sort of challenges should we be looking to address that are fundamental for society and the economy? And then how can we get our research into practice in a much more speedier manner? And they're things we'd love to hear feedback from the research community from. So like what could be really useful for you at University of Limerick is to really undertake a process to feedback into this in a very joint up way, as well as individually. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Matt. It's really interesting to hear. And, I was going to ask about the Impact 2030 and how it works together, because maybe when you're not involved at that level, you're not aware that there's that connectivity across the system, and it's really valuable, I think, for the research community and the industry who engage with the funders as well, to know that that is connectivity is there and that you work together, and it's all under the umbrella of Impact 2030. I think it's been really valuable that approach is there, and to help, I suppose, with the policy driving piece as well, and a kind of a call to action almost to us as an institution, as researchers, to engage with that. Thank you for that. Abigail, I'll move to you just from the point of view, you are the funding officer with the Dairy Processing Technology Centre, which is hosted here at the University of Limerick in Bernal. And, you're a recipient of, through the centre is funded from Enterprise Ireland, but also heavily engaged with industry partners from the dairy sector. And a lot of the topics we heard this morning are really central. So I suppose from your perspective, that you might just talk us through, briefly, the value of that. You're doing a lot of that engagement that we've talked about here that's valuable, the engaging with the network or informing, I suppose, the next phase of the centre, but also engaging with industry and how those mechanisms work. You give us maybe your general kind of thoughts and what makes that work well.
Okay, so the Dairy Processing Technology Centre is an Enterprise Ireland funded centre, and our overall mission is to advance the future of sustainable dairy processing. And so sustainability is really critical in the dairy processing sector. So as you mentioned, we've had talks here today from JJ, Marjana, Jackie and Matteo, who are all PIs in DPTC and all doing really valuable work on sludges and fertilizers, etc. So in terms of we've engaged with all of the funders sitting here today with DAFM and SFI, EPA and Enterprise Ireland to maximise and to leverage the funding that we've already received for our centre to really go beyond the core remit of our centre to meet the needs of our industry. So we're an industry-led centre. We respond as agilely as possible to the needs of the dairy processors. So we have the seven of the major Irish dairy processors in Ireland are in our centre, and we use the external funding mechanisms to either extend the core remit or to address areas that are currently or emerging areas of challenges for our partners, to that end, to try and really target those challenges. So I think in addressing sustainability for the dairy processing sector, I think it's really important to have that collaborative, that industry-led approach, so that we can really address those common sectoral challenges.
Great. I'm very conscious of time, folks. We might just kind of capture a little bit about impact. All of you have spoken. I was going to talk a little more about policy development, but I think, between you've referenced the connectivity across the system, which is really valuable, and how to engage with that. But just a little bit about, what we talk about, what we have to address. How do we know, or how will we know we have addressed it? So from your own perspectives, how is capturing impact or the outcome of what your funding is trying to achieve, how is that, I suppose, embedded into some of your programs, and how will we track progress, mindful that some of the progress or outcome may not be short-term, immediate? How will we individually, I suppose, from your funder perspective, but also collectively as a system which is very much aligned and connected, how will it capture progress, impact of this sustainability research? And anyone who can respond is free to respond. I won't do it one by one at the moment.
Well, I suppose we've been on this impact journey for a long time, and I suppose when it started, it wasn't very popular, but people have definitely, understand the value of, I suppose that as part of the application, developing an impact statement and, trying to plot your impact journey. So it is really important for us. It continues. And I suppose, the impact is evaluated as part of the application and during reviews during the lifetime of the awards as well. And I suppose it is really difficult to measure, there's no doubt about that. But I suppose you have to do it by looking at outputs. So, we have publications, we have patents, but I suppose the fundamental output of the research that we all fund are those trained individuals. And I suppose they're the people who are going to be so impactful, whether they stay in academia, whether they move to industry, whether they move to the public sector. They are the engines, I suppose, of the impact. And I suppose, you also have to look at, those kind of leaders who are, have very strong voices in Europe. People like Brina Gallagher, like Hannah Daly, particularly in this area. I mean, they're people who are really kind of commanding airspace, and their opinions are being sought. And so they are really important. And I suppose as the researchers that are in the room, it is really important that we talk about the research that we do, because again, that is an impact. That's a really strong impact. And we've spoken about, the quadruple helix and ensuring that, taxpayers understand what they're paying for and the value of that. I think that's maybe a little bit from...
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And I know colleagues are looking to come in, but we mentioned earlier Mohammed, who won the Thesis in 3 competition yesterday. Now, so he will represent the university at the national IUA competition. And it's a lovely thing, but it's an amazing skill to communicate your research in 3 minutes with one slide. I mean, and these were very complex areas and to a diverse audience. So it's incredible, but you're absolutely right, Ashley. I think we undervalue how important talking about research and communication to different audiences is as a really valuable part of impact. And I wonder sometimes about overly complicating the measurement of impact may reduce the importance of that really important skill. So thank you for making that point. Yeah.
Maybe just one point. It's not easy, because I suppose as scientists, we're in the thick of it and we like to talk about the detail. So, there is that skill that we all need to develop in kind of taking ourselves out of the detail. And maybe there's training that universities can provide to sort of help people, do that communication. But I do think it's critical.
No, I think you are right, Ashley. And like for supervisors in the audience and all that, like some have to push, so to speak, encourage our students. And some of them will teach us a lot. Because I mean, you know, the new ways of communication research, like your narrative PowerPoint, your narrative presentation, your narrative abstract for your paper, you know, I find my PhD students being a lot younger than I am now, much more media savvy, you know, they're the ones often doing the encouraging, but you've picked up some really pertinent points about the profile building that needs to go alongside a researcher now. It's not okay anymore, really, to just be doing your research. You have to think about communicating and showing the impact of your research and communicating it to different audiences in different media, and that's really important. So thank you for that, Aisling. Darragh, you were going to jump in next.
Yeah, I think it's great that you've kind of mentioned that it's not just about measuring impact, but more that, I suppose, narrative piece and also the maximising impact. And I suppose I'm going to use this opportunity to plug kind of a funding opportunity that's out there at the moment. So our current annual funding call is out there. And I think engaged research, which EPA really champions, is so important in researchers maximising their impact. So for our call, we will have gone through a consultation process, similar to how Patrick mentioned it, with the research community, but also with policymakers to really identify those problems that need to be solved. Funded researchers will get those steering committees. They'll work with people to make sure that they can maximise their impact, and then we try to actively transfer that knowledge to the right people. And just today, actually, we have somebody from UL, David Stiles, is presenting to the EPA on one of his research reports that he recently published, and the outputs of that to see how they maybe are of interest across the various teams in the EPA. So yeah, we can get a little bit fixated on the measurement, and we do a lot of measurement in the EPA. We do a lot of assessment, so we hope that we will see that coming through in the future, but to kind of lead it back linearly to a single research project is difficult. But I think to actually get that communication, the recognition of how research contributes to the broader system is really important. And of course, that human capacity piece is hugely important, especially for science-based agencies like ourselves. We draw most of our staff from, you know, PhD students and other areas, so really important impact coming out of the research investment in this area. But yeah, do have a look at our call at the moment. It's open with lots of topics that cover what's been discussed today.
Yeah, fantastic. That's really helpful there. And I think, like, funders are often seen as just the one way, providing money, but the role funding agencies have in driving other agendas around that, you know, that impact piece, policy, is just so important. So I'm hearing loud and clear from you, like the engagement with the sector being two-way, but also influencing and networking, a really valuable part of the role of researchers and others who are looking for funding as well. So thank you for that. Any other thoughts or comments on that? I think Patrick got ahead of you there, Lawrence. I'll jump to him first. Get the mic up quicker.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. So from our perspective, we're being asked to feed in that our research that's funded or funded across the Irish system feeds into something that's known through the Common Agricultural Policy as the Agricultural Knowledge and Innovation System. So we need the research that's funded and the people that are undertaking it to be able to communicate, for example, with knowledge transfer specialists, with farm advisors, rural economy advisors. So they need to be in a network of people. So one of the things we've done within our research calls is we fund a specific knowledge transfer package that goes beyond funding a researcher specifically to someone with a specialism in this area of communication, dissemination, exploitation. And I suppose, you know, if we were to measure impact, yes, you know, publications, building capacity and capability, very important. But also what you can see now more and more emerging is research and several pieces of research grouping together. For example, in the Farm Zero C project in Cork, like that was research funded by EPA, by DAF and by SFI, all being combined together to provide a solution. Or what you can see is the farmers being offered measures around, for example, multi-species swords. That came from research not so long ago that was funded and end up now is actually in practice. So impact comes in many different ways and can be measured in many ways. Yeah,
it does, Patrick. Thank you. Lawrence, you had some thoughts.
Impacts is, or the expected impact is always be very important factors to justify the funding itself. So put into today's context, our Green Transition Fund is aimed to decarbonize the enterprise sector in line with the target outlined by CAP 23 and 24. So the target is 35% reduction in 2030. So this is a hard metrics, a target we need to achieve. So in our funding, all the capital funding under that Green Transition Fund, we need the company enterprises to submit a measurement and verification report at the end of the I suppose at the start of at the end of the completion of the capital investment to make sure that they are on track on what's the reduction figures that they have promised us on that. So I think one exciting example for that would be Darragh investment under our carbon neutral, or the creation of the carbon neutral brewery in Kildare under our green funding, 7.5 million euro. And well, they are expecting to reduce 15,000 metric tons of carbon emission every year. So I think those would be the figures we're looking for when we support enterprise in terms of the funding support and the other support to make sure that actually they return value to the society.
And as you have a very clear sense, Lawrence, of what the expected impact is and how you might go about looking at it.
Yeah. So in this particular funding, I mean, the normal funding we have would be more economic value. But this one is obviously that we're looking for the carbon reduction.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you very much. I might just pause, look around for questions, queries, comments at this point. Does anyone got anything in the audience they want to focus on?
Good afternoon. Just from an industry point of view, and even this morning, we hear a lot about nature-based solutions, but it's nearly impossible to get these approved by a regulator because of a lack of, let's say, up-to-date data. And I'm wondering, for the four people there who fund research, does this type of work fall into any of your remits?
I think I can take that one. So absolutely. We have currently an evaluation ongoing, I suppose, of a European call we're involved in around nature-based solutions. Last year we had a thematic priority around nature-based solutions, and in this year's call, which is open to industry and HEIs, any organisations across the island of Ireland can apply to it. We have a thematic area on implementing solutions. So trying to gather that evidence of what solutions can work and how they can be then supported. So nature-based solutions are hugely important for the EPA. We look at water quality and really looking at how we can implement nature-based solutions rather than hard solutions to do that. And current funding opportunities there for you to come in under if you're interested.
And there would also be policy developments emerging that are going to support nature-based solutions. So, for example, there's a carbon farming framework that's going to be developed. I think there will be a consultation coming out maybe at some stage during 2024. And that's all about trying to develop, I suppose, monitoring and verification alongside potential payments for carbon storage in various different forms on land. So I think it's an emerging area. Data is absolutely fundamental to this, particularly if it's voluntary market-based solutions. So I think it's watch this space. I think this is going to ramp up quite significantly in a relatively short space of time.
Great.
From an SFI perspective, there are kind of industry academic partnership programs there. So we don't fund industry, but we co-fund research programs with industry. And I suppose there is the possibility to engage with existing research centres, for example, and Bioeconomy was mentioned this morning. So you can go to those research centres and kind of start a conversation. But I'm happy to kind of do some signposting. I know we're running short on time. Happy to discuss.
Thanks for that, folks. If we know is there a question over here? Yeah, great. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Lena Madden from TOS. I have two questions actually. First of all, okay, we have funding for both research institution and industry support to implement sustainable measures. What about the small communities, the ones that have primarily small businesses, rural communities? In order to implement anything there, they would need a quite substantial capital investment. Where would they go for this. And the second question is are there any plans about creating kind of the whole Ireland system of knowledge sharing in every, say, specific area, either it's agriculture, green agriculture, or bioeconomy, because at the moment we're all disconnected. And I know of a number of projects technically working on the same topics without knowing that these have been done in the past. Okay, so I don't know, it's a two questions, so if you could answer, thank you.
Lawrence, yeah, go ahead there.
Can I answer the first question at least? So maybe you can come to me. So if you have a company or group of companies want to work with research institutions in Ireland on a project that would help the company or the group of companies to add value or increase their competitiveness or create innovative products or process or business model. Innovation partnership may be one that you can consider. We support companies all over Ireland, and our one criteria would be they have to be client companies of development agencies. So Enterprise Ireland, IDA Ireland, local enterprise office, or the ROS, maybe in some of the more rural areas. So if they are client companies and if they want to work with you or the research group, then, I mean, we can look at the proposal and see where we can fund. If we can fund up to 80% of the project cost. And the funding would go to the researchers and to implement a solution. And the technology can be licensed back to the companies for their own competitive advantage. Yeah.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you for that, Patrick.
So there's some initiatives I think that might be relevant to, for example, the area of green agriculture. Under the Common Agricultural Policy, there is a Common Agricultural Policy Irish network that's in place. It was called the National Rural Network before. So this is a place where people can come meet together. There's a whole range of events hosted all around Ireland throughout the year, bringing together, for example, all the funded projects on EIP Agri or maybe under Leader. And they are, I suppose, a networking opportunity. Another initiative that we have a Bioeconomy Forum and we have a Bioeconomy Network. So annually we run something called Bioeconomy Ireland Week. And we put a call out and we ask interested groups to come forward with ideas to, I suppose, network the community and address the issues. But what we leave it to is we leave it for people to come up with their own initiatives. We run one from the Department of Environment and Climate will run one. Other departments or agencies or industry groups or clusters or Irish Bioeconomy Foundation, Bioorbic, etc. will all run events. So this is an open call for people, if they spot a problem, to come forward with a solution. And I think that can help to address some of these challenges where sometimes you find research can be overlapping. You can get funded partly here and partly there, and maybe they would be better talking together. So just as an example of that, just to conclude the point, like 2 years ago as the opening event for Bioeconomy Ireland Week, we ran an event in the Department of Agriculture facility in Kildare where over 30 research groups came together and presented all their presentations in a format in a room, and several of the people spoke to an audience. I think we'd over 200 people there. So that's the type of thing that we try to encourage, support, and offer opportunities for people to take part in.
Just on your second question, it's only a partial answer. What you're looking for obviously would be the ideal situation to have kind of a single place to find these things. But the EPA chairs the National Environmental Research Coordination Group. It's a group of about 50 departments and agencies. And once a year in the area of climate research, we do a compilation of all of the research projects across all of the funders. And we produce a report, and there's a database of projects going back to 2017, all that are all related to the area of climate research. So there's that kind of resource to see what what's going on across the funders there. There's analogous ones for energy that is chaired by SEAI and marine by the Marine Institute. So there's kind of piecemeal efforts, I suppose, going on at the moment, and hopefully at some point maybe we will have a more complete picture, like you're suggesting.
I was thinking more about IT network, like a platform or a system, because as a researcher, when you have, many projects going on at the same time, and many things happen on a day-to-day basis, it's very difficult to attend. There are lots of very interesting and very good events that very informative, but when you need to drive information about something, say biomass, biomass map of Ireland, co-products, resources, materials, any development that is happening in a country in this specific area, are there any plans between all of the providers to create a centralized network where we could basically go to and network, IT network, a platform, and I don't know, get what type of soil in this area, what type of research projects were conducted in this area, what were the outcomes, etc., etc. So something like that would be very valuable to create, I think. Thank you.
I'm just going to mention it again, just in case you're not aware of it. We do have the National Open Research Forum, on which I think probably all of our agencies sit. I don't personally sit on that forum. And they're looking at open research across the board, and I think probably looking at open data as part of that. They're running some pilot projects I'm aware of at the moment, but there's maybe more information on their website if you want to look for that. Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much for that, Darragh. We're happy to move on. Morris has the mic.
Yeah, sorry. I was just getting back quickly to the communication piece. I think one of the things that we really do well here in the University of Limerick is communication, mainly driven by the Vice President's Research Office, yesterday being a point and example. But also our links to industry. We're famous for our links to industry here at UL, and we do that very well. And we've availed with Enterprise Ireland. It's very clear how you can go with industry to Enterprise Ireland and get innovation partnerships. That's really clear for us. The one thing that's not so clear though, and Patrick, you answered my question, but I wasn't sure how we could actually influence DAFM calls or influence EPA calls. But there is a mechanism in place, but I'm not aware how I would personally get involved in that. Is it true? Would it be true Bioeconomy, for example? Because I am in Bioeconomy, I'm challenge leading that. So do I tap into that through Bioeconomy, or how do you do that practically?
So I suppose I was pointing out that upcoming DAFM is going to develop a research and innovation vision, and there'll be a consultation process to participate in that. So that's one way of influencing it. I suppose DAFM is also very open to something systematically coming back from the University of Limerick that says within the frame of research that you fund under sustainable food systems and bioeconomy, the University of Limerick would like to point out to you A, B, and C. That would be coming from your Vice President of Research, and that's something that we've seen before. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a specific example, but obviously not for here.
So, Morris, what Patrick is trying to say is that in the coming weeks, I'll be emailing you and colleagues looking for your input to a document that I will then send on your behalf with a lens from the university.
Thank you very much.
So looking forward to it. Thanks, folks. Aisling, go ahead, yeah.
So you didn't mention SFI, but from an SFI perspective, it is, it's kind of rarely thematic. So we have some calls, challenge calls, etc., that are thematic, but so it is very much open to the applicants to decide what they want to, what research they want to apply to, or what kind of industry collaborative programs.
Yeah, it is pretty clear how it works with SFI, and also with Europe as well. There is it's very clear how you can influence calls. You get emailed and you get the document, and it's quite clear.
Thanks for that, folks.
I suppose just similar to Patrick, I mean, we went through a consultation process for our thematic priorities, which we'll hopefully be publishing later this year, but which our current call is actually based on. And we are a bit reliant on the institutions, I suppose. We don't have names and details of every researcher, so we would have gone out through the research office, I guess. So I would say engage the research office that you're interested in being involved in some of those kind of opportunities when they arise.
Yeah, I appreciate the point. It wasn't individual examples, it's more thematic examples.
But I do have to say, I think the opportunity for researchers to influence and connect with the system, as described today, you know, most people are probably aware, but if you're not, it's something just to be really aware of. And I have to say the system, it's small enough in Ireland in the sense that we do get to meet with people really well and, you know, and form relationships. But I think it's important that people are aware that openness and willingness to engage is there at different levels, and the different levels piece is important. So thank you for that, folks. I'm very aware that people must be starving or getting close to it. Some people are laughing at me going, finally she's realised. Are there final questions or comments or at this stage? And it's totally fine if there are, and where people can chat over lunch as well, but anything particular coming up at this stage? Okay, we haven't done a deep dive into specific cause, which we felt like people could interact with separately if they wish to. But any final thoughts or comments from the panel at this point?
Just about to say something, I've totally forgotten what it was. It was very important. Yeah, no, I think it was actually following on from your point, Norley. Just like we have an amazing ecosystem in Ireland. You know, the connectedness that exists, it's not perfect. We all know it's not perfect. We're working hard to improve it every day. But, you know, we are kind of the envy of other countries because of that connectedness. So I think, you know, I suppose it is kind of a call to action. Use it, you know, use your networks, come together, work with industry, apply to us, you know, work on your own collaboratively. And I suppose it's kind of to your point as well, you know, trying to identify academic partners in the system. And I know that's not easy, but actually if you've got specific areas that you're interested in and you're working on, you can actually come to us and we could kind of check our database to see, you know, are there people working in that area? So we are really open. Small organization, can take a little bit of time, but, you know, use the system that we have. It is kind of unique.
Thank you, Aisling. Lawrence?
Aisling's comment. So Enterprise Ireland, the support in terms of technology centers or gateway and the other research agenda, we follow the industry need. So with our communication and engagement with the industry, if we feel there's a gap on particular area that we need research competence in area, then we probably would do a consultation and see whether we should fund some initiative around that. And also, I think it's important that if you believe, the researcher think that they have something to add to the industry, please feel free to come to us as well. So we have, in different sectors, we have our technologists, and they're engaging with different companies in their sectors in terms of try to help them with the technology aspect of the companies. So they would be the best one to really know and understand whether your technology would be applicable on which particular companies in the sector there. So I think if something that you really feel strong about, okay, contribute to the industry, talk to us and talk to our technologists.
Thank you very much. You've been a great panel. I think, and the signals that you've given about the openness and the willingness to engage with the system and the two-way approach that's there. And maybe that's obvious to lots of people, but sometimes it isn't. And I think it's really good for you to signal that today, as well as talk about specific funding that is available, but also the willingness to work together. So thank you very much for that. Much appreciated. Thank you.